For the remainder of this chapter, we'll be using this simple worker application to demonstrate some common techniques for using web workers. This is a little bit more complicated than the example we showed in the last chapter. The way this one works is you type in a number, let's say 25, which we know is not a prime number, and I click on this button that says Find First Prime. It says the first prime greater than 25 is 29. 29 is a prime number. If I were to type 29 in here, it would find the first prime after that, which is 31. Or if I type in 1, 2, 3, 4, it'll find some other number, 1237. So it's simple in how it works. Let's take a look at the code. This is the HTML file, worker find prime-done.html from your chapter 2 folder in your exercise files. First, I'm just going to scroll through it for those of you who are typing it in. And this goes off the end just a little bit there. So taking a look at the code, if we come down here to the init function, and init, of course, is called at the bottom of the JavaScript, and this window.onload equals init. So whenever the window is loaded, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to call this init. And the first thing that does is it checks to see if workers are supported on this browser. And if it does, it creates a new worker object and adds a couple of event listeners and sets the focus on the starting integer field. So you'll notice when we load up this page, it sets the focus on that starting integer field right there. Whenever the form is submitted or you press a button, this start search function is called. Checks to see if the number entered is an integer. It clears the display. And what clear display does is it doesn't clear the entire display, it just clears the messages and the errors. And eventually it comes down here to line 62, and it calls worker.postMessage to send a message to the worker with an integer value so that it can go ahead and find the next prime. We have a couple of callbacks here. We have a callback for events being sent back from the worker, either error messages or results. They're on line 45. For when errors are called back. We'll get into the details of how all of this works later on in this chapter, but for now, this is just a tour of the code. We have some utility functions for managing the display, for checking if it's an integer, and for putting commas in the number, and that's pretty much it. Then we have the HTML down at the bottom. Now let's take a look at the JavaScript for the worker itself. This is a pretty simple worker, and your workers should be simple because there's a lot of overhead in running these workers. You want to keep them as simple as you possibly can. The handle message function handles messages coming from the page, and it runs through this while true loop looking for the next prime, and it breaks from that when it finds the prime. And then we have our support functions down here. Is prime checks to see if it is a prime or not by calling least factor. And least factor is a simple function for finding the least factor of a number. And this is really the easiest way to calculate primes in JavaScript. And here's the application working. I can just type whatever I want to in here and click on the button, and it finds the first prime larger than that number. So the purpose of this simple application is to explore the web workers interface and experiment with implementation. And we'll be using it for the rest of this chapter. Of course, your application will be very different. This one is designed to be simple so we can experiment with it easily.